Well, you will note that the Dangote Group is a diversified and fully integrated conglomerate with interests across a range of sectors over in the west of Africa and Africa as a whole. We've got current interests including cement, sugar, flour, salt, pasta, fruit juice and the real estate sector of the economy as well. And it's got new projects in the pipeline in the oil and gas spheres, telecoms, fertilizer and steel sectors of the economy as well. Now, Dangote Cement is one of the arms within this group, and it is Nigeria's largest cement producer. It's said now that it's signed construction contracts worth $228 million with China's Sinoma International Group, this to build cement plants in Senegal and Zambia. And joining us live from our studios over in Lagos, Nigeria right now to unpack some of what this would spell for the company moving forward is Edwin Devakumar. He's the acting CEO of Dangote Cement. Thanks so much, Edwin, for joining us this morning. Well, Dangote Group has signed this $228 million contracts for construction of cement lines in Africa with China's Sinoma. Why this turn to the east and offering of business in that direction?
Well, if you see the cement business in Nigeria and in fact in the whole of Africa, primarily the cement production in Nigeria as well as in Africa is not able to satisfy the whole demands of the continent as well as the country. Most of the cement requirements for the continent as well as the country is being met by importation of bulk cement, bagged cement and clinker. So the demand is substantial and the local production capacity is very small. Most of the requirement is being met by importation from China, Europe and other countries. So there is a very good, if you look at it, there is a substantial demand-supply gap. And all the raw material which is required, the limestone, the gypsum is available within the continent. And the coal, the oil, the gas, the fuel is available. So we realize that there is a good area where we can step in and meet the gap between the demand and the supply. If you take Nigeria, for example, today the capacity, the requirement of cement in Nigeria is 15 million tons, whereas hardly half of it is being produced into the country. So now we have built up capacity today to the extent of 8 million tons, and we are expanding our capacity to the tune of 20 million tons by the early 2011. So by 2011, if you look at the increase in the demand, which goes at the rate of 7%, we would have surplus cement in Nigeria, which we can export. So we have been looking at investment in other countries where we can go for cement terminals and grinding plants. So the surplus cement from Nigeria can be exported. And we have also focused on certain countries within the continent where we find that there is a substantial demand-supply gap.
So let's at this stage then, Edwin, sorry to interrupt, but let's bring in Zambia and Senegal here, because you talk about production capacity and demand within Nigeria and catering to demand outside of Nigeria's borders. Why have these two areas been pinpointed for investment in terms of enhancing production capacity in those specific countries?
Sorry, can you come again?
Just why has Zambia and Senegal been chosen as, the place to invest right now in enhancing production capacity? Well,
it's the same as in Nigeria. If you look at it, Zambia is a country which is totally locked away from the seaports. So the cement which comes from outside is extremely expensive because it has to travel a long distance by road or rail. And there is a substantial gap in the demand supply. And the mining industry is expanding in Zambia, so there is a substantial demand. And also we have chosen a location which is in the northern part of Zambia because Democratic Republic of Congo, where again the mining activities are all in deep hinterland. So the cement from which we produce in Zambia can go both to Zambia as well as the Democratic Republic of Congo. And if you look at Senegal, the country has been very peaceful and the business in the country is expanding. So the demand for cement has been expanding and the government has been focusing on investment on infrastructure. So there is again a huge demand growth and the supply is limited. So these are two countries we are primarily focused as on date.
Well, this very clearly illustrates the company's commitment to expanding its operations across the African continent. Just looking at the demand you speak of, let's look at risk, because this is coming to the fore at a time where globally we've seen a lot of construction firms pulling back on their project pipelines, and if not seeing a pullback, going as far as delaying projects and cancelling them altogether. Are there any risks that you're factoring in still?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Are you factoring any risks that could, or any threats to demand as you have forecasted right now?
Well, a year back, actually, we had forecasted a huge demand growth based on what was happening in all over the world. Even in Nigeria, if you see, the demand growth has been always 7%, except in the year 2008, when the demand grew by 22%. But now the growth has slowed down. So that is why we have also been, though we had focused on other countries, but right now we are focusing on these two countries where the demand growth is substantial and where the supply is very limited. So in these countries where we are focusing right now, including Nigeria, Senegal, Zambia, there is absolutely no concern about the investment we are making, because we do believe that the demand is very large and the supply is very inadequate as on date.
Just looking at where these funds for the investment is coming from, I mean, this comes to the fore at a time when credit lines, especially in Nigeria, are running pretty thin. So how are you funding this investment?
Well, most of the funding we have been working through internal accruals. In the past, if you look at the group, the philosophy of the group was to begin with, when we went into manufacturing, we were not even looking at any borrowings. All our capital expenses and all our revenue recurrent expenses were all funded internally. And then as we started growing, we believed that, okay, to sustain this level of growth, we should go and borrow funds. So we started borrowing working capital. And when we wanted to have a very rapid growth, that was the first time we started going to the banks for outside capital. But even the last cement project, which we completed 2 years back, where we had taken funds from EIB and IFC, we have paid off all the loans as on date. So primarily, we focus on funding through internal accruals and internal resources. And we do go to the banks, but since most of the funding is coming from within the group, the credit crunch is not a major constraint for us in this expansion phase.